It's one thing to like hear from me like a scientist about the program, but like what do people who actually went through the program, like what do they have to say about it? And we actually did some research on that too, and I'm going to give you a few quotes and some stories about what people have shared who went through the program. You know, this is like how we thought the program might work, you know, that mindfulness training might help our ability to become more self-aware of like our thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations, and help us place our mind where we choose to place it so we might be able to actually act on what our insight is encouraging us to do. Might help us regulate our emotions better, and all those together we can apply to our relationships with the things that really drive blood pressure, like our relationship with alcohol or stress reactivity or our diet or our physical activity. That's one thing for like us as scientists and like mindfulness experts or whatever you call us to like come up with, but what do the participants who actually went through the program think? And so we actually asked them, you know, like, what do you think? Like, how do you think this program actually worked to improve like your heart health or your cardiovascular health? We asked like a lot of people these questions and actually did qualitative methods to like refine the themes down and pull out specific quotes and publish this paper that you can see in that journal called PLOS One. One of the things that came up is, you know, we talked about like the self-awareness thing, like people's self-awareness coming up, and we also talked about like emotion regulation. But what seemed to happen was that self-awareness usually came first. That then once people became more aware like of their thoughts or their emotions, for example, then that could lead them to make some wiser decisions around, say, how to regulate their emotion or where to place their mind. And so here's this example where, you know, someone shared, you know, there's this time when I know like I have alarm bells going off in my head and I know I need to stop and take a breath and open towards me and proceed. And all of his reminders to be kind, it was being kind to yourself. And you'll learn in this class, like the stop practice, for example, where we take a moment to stop and then just take a breath or take a moment. And then we open and observe what's going on in this moment, like in our thoughts, emotions, physical sensations. And then based on what our wisdom is sharing with us, we proceed. And so that's what this participant is talking about around how that practice like helped them. You know, like there's the piece around how our self-awareness first can then lead to what they call attention redeployment, or that's like the attention control side, to actually place our mind where we feel like it's actually best to place rather than in some other spot where it's just maybe ruminating, for example. And so this idea of like what this participant shared of like first being aware of when my body's wound up and then saying, all right, I have a lot more control over that than I thought I did. So it gave me some good ways to say, you know, okay, let's just use these tools, the breathing, the focused relaxation, to let a lot of that go. We also saw that the self-awareness allowed for changes in diet, like choosing healthier food options. And so one participant shared, you know, the way that I look at food in a lot of ways, you know, there's that hesitation, that moment like, oh, wait, I have a choice here, you know, like maybe I won't do that. And it's given me more ability to do that. You know, I interviewed about 15 people who about 3 to 5 years after they finished the program. And it was really interesting to hear the effects of the program so long after they'd completed it. And so one participant shared with me how she'd had like 4 pregnancies, but only 2 births. And so she'd had a couple of miscarriages that were very difficult. And even after the births of her 2 children that lived, the births themselves were quite traumatic, and she had to work with like postpartum depression afterwards, and some of the medications that she was on had her gain quite a bit of weight, and her husband was pretty insensitive to that weight gain, and it had her just stop trusting her body, and she like just kind of blocked it out, and so she would eat and notice the flavor and stuff, but she just wouldn't want to know like what it was doing to her body. She just wouldn't think about it, and same around physical activity and stuff. And then through going through the program, she shared how she began to care for her body more. You know, that we go through mindfulness practices like a body scan, for example, where we're coming to know each and every part of the body and offering like kindness towards it. And, you know, and at the end of this program, you actually get to write like a letter to yourself, to your future self that you'll get at some time in the future. And she actually got that letter months after the program. and read that letter to herself where it talked about the kindness that she was offering to her body and how important it was. And so it had her shift towards a more whole foods diet, so that she started having like more green smoothies, for example, in the mornings, instead of like just cereal that would just kind of like give her quick energy and then a crash. And the smoothies kept her full for longer during the day, and she was able to start to get some help around like physical activity. And it transformed her life in many ways. And her blood pressure came down, her fasting glucose came down, where she was pre-diabetic before. And just her happiness improved too. So those are like some examples of how the training programs influence like being able to choose some healthier food practices. Another piece that came up is how it seemed to the self-awareness seemed to also help people minimize like their reactions to stress. So one person shared how, I guess I come out first with the fact that I can handle my relationships better with people, and instead of going on an attack, I can be more open and listen and figure out and take a moment not to do damage to a situation. So, we had one participant who on the first day of class drove into the parking lot at Brown University that was a valet parking lot, and he didn't see the valet signs, and he drove like right in and started going upstairs. And the valet parking guys were like, "You can't be driving up here." And he's like, "This is my car. Like, I want to park my car." And they ended up getting like in a fight, and they called security. And this participant got so upset that he just put his car in reverse, stepped on the gas, and hit a pole. And as you might guess, he didn't make it to the first day of class. And so we were able to talk with security and allow him in the second day. And I talked to him like 5 years after the class, and he said how that moment was a moment in his life when he realized how out of control his anger was and his stress reactivity, and how the program had really helped him with his emotion regulation, so that now he can still get angry, but he doesn't go as high anymore, and he doesn't get angry as often. And it also allowed him to really care for his body and his mind more. And through his body, he was able to lose, about 15 pounds, and he came off his blood pressure meds in collaboration with his physician, and hasn't been back on them for a few years. And so those are some examples of how the mindfulness training might also help minimize some of our reactions to stress too. So that is just sort of some examples of what participants have shared are ways that the mindfulness-based blood pressure reduction program influenced their well-being. So thank you.